Charlie Munger said something once that breaks most people's understanding of wealth building. The first 100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it. He wasn't being crude. He was being accurate. Because getting to your first 100,000, or let's say 200,000 to adjust for inflation, isn't just hard. It's a completely different game than going from 200,000 to a million. Different rules. Different math. Different psychology, and the reason most people never hit that number has nothing to do with how much they earn. It's because they don't understand that the first 200,000 works backwards from everything they've been taught about money. Let's start with why 200,000 matters. It's not a random number. It's the inflection point. The moment where your money starts working harder than you do. Before 200,000, you're the engine. You're contributing most of the growth through savings. The market is helping, sure. But you're still doing the heavy lifting. After 200,000, the math inverts. At an average 7% annual return, 200,000 generates about $14,000 a year without you touching it. That's more than most people can save in a year after taxes and expenses. So once you cross that threshold, your money starts compounding on itself faster than you can manually add to it. You're no longer building wealth. You're watching it build itself. But getting there? That's the part that destroys people. Here's what the first few years of saving actually look like. Year 1. You save $15,000. Solid effort. You're disciplined. You're proud. The market goes up 7%. You make about $525. $525 on $15,000. You worked all year. Sacrificed. Skipped things. And the market gave you what you could have made in a weekend driving for Uber. Year 2. You save another $15,000. Now you have $31,000 total, including gains. Market goes up another 7%. You make about $2,000. Still not life-changing. Year 3. $48,000 total. Market gives you about $3,000. You're 3 years in. You've personally saved $45,000 of your own money. The market gave you $3,000. You did 15 times more work than the market. And this is the part where most people quit, because here's what happens in your brain. You're making sacrifices. Real ones. You're saying no to trips. No to eating out. No to the things your friends are doing. And for what? To watch a number on a screen go up by $3,000 a year? You could make $3,000 working weekends. You could make it doing freelance work. You could make it selling stuff in your garage. The compounding everyone talks about? It's invisible. It's theoretical. It doesn't feel like it's working. So people drift. They don't cash out and spend it all. They just stop adding to it. They put in $5,000 instead of $15,000. Then $2,000. Then nothing. And the account sits there. Growing slowly. But never hitting the number that would have changed everything. Here's what actually has to happen to hit 200,000. And this is uncomfortable. You have to outsave the market for years. Maybe a decade. If you're putting away $15,000 a year at a 7% return, you'll hit 200,000 in about 10 years. But here's the breakdown that matters. In those 10 years, you will personally contribute $150,000. The market will give you the other $50,000. You're doing 3/4 of the work. That's why it feels slow. Because it is slow. You're not being rewarded for your discipline yet. You're just being tested, and now let's talk about the thing nobody wants to hear. The fastest way to 200,000 isn't better investing. It's earning more. If you're making 50,000 a year and saving 15,000, that's a 30% savings rate. That's genuinely impressive. But you're still 10 years away. If you increase your income to 75,000 and keep your expenses the same, now you're saving 40,000 a year. You hit 200,000 in 4 years instead of 10. Same sacrifice. Same lifestyle. You just made more money. This is why high earners who live modestly hit wealth milestones so much faster. Not because they're smarter with money. Because the math is easier when the top number is bigger. But here's the trap on the other end. Most people who increase their income don't keep their expenses the same. They upgrade the apartment. Buy the nicer car. Start eating out more. They're making more. They feel like they deserve it. And they do. But the math doesn't care about deserve. If you make 75,000 but spend 60,000, you're saving 15,000 a year. Same as someone making 50 and spending 35. The person making less is in the exact same position as you. They just feel poorer. This is the thing that kills more wealth building journeys than anything else. Lifestyle creep. You get a raise. You celebrate. You upgrade something. Just one thing. Nicer apartment. Better car. A vacation you've been wanting to take. And it feels earned. It feels justified. But then your new baseline is higher. Your rent is $300 more a month. Your car payment is $200 more. Your weekend habits cost more because you're living in a more expensive area. And suddenly your raise didn't increase your savings rate. It increased your burn rate. You're making more. But you're not saving more. And 5 years later, you're still at 40,000 in your investment account, wondering why you're not further along. So here's the math if you actually want to hit 200,000 fast. Let's say you're 25. You make 60,000 a year. If you can save 30,000 a year, that's a 50% savings rate. You'll hit 200,000 in about 6 years. 31 years old. 200,000 in the bank. That changes your entire life trajectory. But 30,000 a year on 60,000 income? That means you're living on 30,000. That's $2,500 a month. Rent, food, transportation, everything. Is it possible? Yes. Barely. Is it miserable? Depends on where you live and what you value. Here's where location becomes everything. If you're trying to save 30,000 a year while living in San Francisco or New York, you're cooked. Rent alone is $2,000. Add food, transportation, basic expenses, you're at $3,000 a month minimum. You'd need to make $90,000 just to save 30. But if you're in a lower cost of life city, somewhere in the Midwest, the South, secondary cities, $2,500 a month is totally doable. You can rent a decent place for $800. Spend $300 on food. $200 on transportation. Spend the rest on everything else. Same income. Same savings. Different zip code. This is why remote work is such a wealth-building cheat code. Earn a high cost of living salary. Live in a low cost of living place. Pocket the difference. Let's be realistic about timelines. If you're saving 15,000 a year, you're looking at 10 years. If you're saving 20,000, about 7.5 years. If you're saving 30,000, about 6 years. These aren't get-rich-quick numbers. This is a decade of your life. Your 20s. Or your 30s. Or both. And during that decade, you're going to watch your friends buy things, travel, upgrade their lives. You're going to feel behind, left out, like you're missing your youth. And maybe you are. That's the trade-off nobody talks about, because here's the thing. You could just not do this. You could spend the money. Enjoy your 20s. Travel. Live in the nice apartment. Drive the nice car. And you'd have experiences. Memories. A life that felt full in the moment. 10 years later, you'd have $5,000 in your savings account and a lot of Instagram photos. Meanwhile, the person who saved has $200,000. And that $200,000 is now generating $14,000 a year in passive growth. That's a free vacation. Every year. Forever. But they spent their 20s eating ramen and staying home on weekends. So who made the right choice? Here's what happens after you hit 200,000. Year 11. You add 15,000. Market adds 14,000. You're at 229,000. Year 12. You add 15,000. Market adds 16,000. You're at 260,000. Wait. The market is now contributing more than you are. Year 15. You add 15,000. Market adds 23,000. You're at 350,000. The market is adding 50% more than you're contributing. Year 20. You add 15,000. Market adds 39,000. You're at 570,000. You're putting in 15. The market's putting in 39. You're just a passenger now. This is what Munger meant. The first 200,000 is brutal because you're fighting gravity. Every dollar you save is a dollar you didn't spend. It's pure sacrifice. But after 200,000, you're coasting downhill. The compound interest takes over. Your contributions become optional. The system runs itself. But you only get there if you survive the first part. And most people don't. Here's the paradox. The time when you need the most discipline, the early years, is when you have the least evidence it's working. Year 3 of saving feels exactly like year 1. The number's bigger, but it doesn't feel different. You're still broke. Still saying no to things. Still living below your means. The only difference is a number on a screen that doesn't change your daily life at all. And humans are terrible at delayed gratification when the delay is measured in years. We need feedback. Rewards. Progress we can feel. Watching your net worth go from 30,000 to 45,000 doesn't feel like progress. It feels like nothing. The people who actually make it to 200,000 do something different. They change their identity. They stop seeing themselves as people who are sacrificing. They start seeing themselves as people who save. It's not a diet. It's who they are. They're not giving up the vacation. They're choosing the investment. They're not skipping the nice dinner. They're prioritizing the future. Same action. Different frame. And that frame is the only thing that makes it sustainable. Because if you're constantly feeling like you're missing out, you'll break. But if you genuinely value the future more than the present, if you're wired that way, the sacrifice doesn't feel like sacrifice. It feels like playing the game correctly. But here's the uncomfortable question. What if you spend 10 years saving, hit 200,000, and then something happens? Market crash. Job loss. Medical emergency. You cash out. Or you stop contributing. Or the gains evaporate. 10 years of discipline. Gone. This is the risk of the long game. You're betting on a future that may not arrive. And if it doesn't, you traded your 20s for nothing. Of course, the counterargument is obvious. If you spend everything and save nothing, you're guaranteeing you'll have nothing in 10 years. At least if you save, you have a shot. The person who doesn't save is making a different bet. They're betting they'll always be able to earn. That they'll never need a safety net. That future them will figure it out. And sometimes they do. But usually they don't. So here's where it lands. There are two paths. Path 1, spend now. Enjoy your youth. Live fully in the present. Hope you can catch up later. Path 2, save now. Delay gratification. Build a foundation. Hope it pays off. Most people try to split the difference. Save a little. Spend a little. End up with neither enough savings nor enough experiences. The people who actually build wealth pick one. They go hard on savings for a decade. Then they coast. Or they go hard on living for a decade. Then they hustle later. The middle path is the slowest path. If you're 25 and serious about hitting 200,000, here's the realistic path. Maximize income. Minimize expenses. Move somewhere cheap if you have to. Save 30 to 40,000 a year. In 6 to 7 years, you're there. You're 31 or 32 with 200,000 in investments. At that point, you can ease up. Go back to a normal savings rate. Upgrade your lifestyle. The foundation is built. Or you keep going. Save another 5 years. Hit 500,000 by 37. At that point, you're financially untouchable. You could coast for the rest of your career and retire a multi-millionaire. But it all hinges on that first brutal 6 years. Here's what nobody tells you. The first 200,000 doesn't just change your net worth. It changes your relationship with money. Once you have 200,000, you stop feeling broke. Even if you don't touch it. You know it's there. You know you could pull it out if you needed to. That security changes how you make decisions. You negotiate harder for raises. Because you don't need the job as desperately. You take smarter risks. Because you have a cushion. You stress less. Because one emergency won't ruin you. The first 200,000 buys you something more valuable than money. It buys you options. So can you save your first 200,000 fast? Yes. If you're willing to do what most people won't. Earn more. Spend way less. Stay consistent for years. No tricks. No hacks. Just math and discipline. The problem isn't that it's complicated. It's that it's boring. And most people would rather be entertained than wealthy. Charlie Munger was right. The first 100,000 or 200,000 is a bitch. Not because the math is hard. Because the wait is brutal. You're grinding for years with almost nothing to show for it. And then one day, you cross the threshold. And suddenly, the grind is over. The money works for you. But only if you make it to the threshold. Most people don't. They get close. They get to 50,000, 80,000, 120,000. And they stop. So close. But not close enough for the magic to kick in. The question isn't whether you can do it. It's whether you will. If this changed how you think about saving, subscribe. More strategies, more uncomfortable truths, more ways to build wealth when everyone's telling you to just enjoy your life.